All right, today we're going to talk a little bit about aligning our body, 1-inch punch, internal power, using the ground, elastic force, all these different terms. But it's basically how to efficiently use our body to emit force. And so, in my opinion, it's just coordinating all these different elements together, harmonizing to create one clean force. So one of the first forces is basically just dropping our weight. It's taking a step. Our center of gravity is coming forward. Like a tree falling has a certain amount of weight that has to it. And this is borrowed weight. This is gravity. I'm not exerting any muscular effort for this to happen. I'm just simply catching myself. So if I was just to put my arm out and just use that, it has a certain amount of force because it's my mass moving forward. It's the earth pulling my body down to the ground. Dusty just happens to be in the way, right? So that's the one part. The second part is a drop. And that's simply dropping my center of gravity down into my lower belly. It's the idea like dropping a rock into water. The ripples go outward. So by dropping, it also creates an outward force. So I combine the step with a little bit of a drop, where I'm sinking my hips and dropping my weight. And even just combining those two, it creates a big effect. So stepping, dropping weight. Next thing I add is my waist. So the waist is the thickest part of our body, thicker than our arms and legs. In Chinese martial arts, they use the waist a lot, put a heavy emphasis on opening and using the waist. It's powerful, it's strong, it's great for the organs and back. So what I'm going to do is just combine the step with the drop with the waist. I'm just going to wind my waist and then let it unwind naturally. So it's in a coiled position here, and then it just simply unwinds. So just let the waist coil, step, drop. Again, it's kind of borrowed force. I'm using gravity with the step, gravity with the drop. I'm using my tissues unwinding to create a force. And notice I don't really need to, there is a little bit of a space because I want the foot and my weight to drop, but I don't really need it. I could be here and do the same thing. I don't need any length or any wind up. The second part is connecting my shoulder into my torso. So I don't want my shoulder open like this or closed like this, because when I go to exert a force, if the force goes up my arm and there's nothing behind it, it's going to shoot out that way. And if I could easily injure myself if I took a force with my shoulder open here. So I want to find that neutral place where my shoulder can sink and settle and connect into my torso. So when I align myself up with whatever target, and you can do this with your partner, you can do it with a heavy bag, I want to make sure that my shoulder is aligned. So here I'll just do a step and just make sure that that force is neatly going into my shoulder and into my torso. The other part of that is my elbow. I want my elbow to compress into my shoulder. So if my shoulder is into my torso, but my elbow's way out here, with this point of contact, it's not aligned. There's a disconnect. So what I want to do is drop my elbow and have it line up so it presses into my shoulder. And then with my wrist, I want to align these three joints up. So my wrist, or my point of contact here, is lined up with my elbow and lined up with my shoulder. So whatever force is exerted on my upper limb here is being transferred evenly through my body down into the ground. So come a little closer. So I line up my three joints of my upper body. So if I'm out here and try to do that, it's not nearly like I'm not being compressed. It's just all getting leaked out here. So I really drop that elbow nice and strong here so that I can connect. The other thing is the extension of the arm. And so if I was standing here on my tippy toes and I push with my arm, I would push myself back. So even though I'm just pushing with my arm, I'm still connected into the ground. This force is equally and oppositely pushing into the ground. So then what we want to do is take all these elements and harmonize them. So I have the dropping of the foot, dropping of my weight, unwinding of the waist, lining up my upper limbs, and I can exert a pretty decent force without very much effort. I don't have to be back here to do it. I don't have to wind up. I don't have to do all this stuff. All the conditions are already set right here for me to do it. And then we can look at the length or the quality of the force. In other words, we can, if we use our legs and our waist a little bit more, we can create a nice long force where we send it out and we move mass, right? Same thing here, move mass. We can also do a short force where we maybe use that drop a little bit, let our tissues compress and focus more on the drop, creating a nice short force. And if you can hear it, we're pushing the air out of his lungs because it's a short force, but it penetrates deep into the body. The nice thing about these forces, like when you're doing like whatever your art is, if you're doing like judo or grappling or striking or whatever, you don't have to wind up to exert these forces, and you can make them go in different directions, up, down, forward. You can start exerting force on your training partner without much wind up or telegraphing your moves. And so that way it appears to be quick. I don't have to move all the way up from here, with a punch, with a push, with a pull, with anything. You're just combining all these forces to make a nice, efficient use of force with your body. So, nice little parlor trick is that you can do the 1-inch punch. So stand here, and all you're doing is coordinating, without much effort, coordinating all these elements of your body to create an effect. And so it's really just unpacking what that is to have that, internal or elastic or that 1-inch power.